Hey, it's Dave. So, in this video, I want to talk about developing skills in our kids and also us personally. But what does it take for our kids to learn new skills at a high level, whether it's language or academics or sports or music, etc.? So, the past several months, I've been really focusing on this idea of skill development and trying out a lot of things with my kids. So, in this video, I want to summarize a formula that I've been developing and implementing with my kids and share some personal stories about how it's going. So, this formula has three parts, and it's about how to help kids acquire skills at a high level. And I don't claim to be an inventor of this formula or each part of the formula. It's just something that's worked for me. There's probably a lot of other people who've caught on to these principles and ideas. However, I want to bring it all together in kind of my own personal take on how to implement these three principles. But at the core of my take is that I think when you implement this three-part formula all together, something magical happens where kids are able to learn at an extremely fast pace and they're able to acquire skills at a very proficient and high level. And it's fascinating to watch. So what are these three principles? So the first principle is daily practice. The second principle is what I call sweet spot +1. And the third principle is correction and feedback. So let's go through each of these principles one at a time and then explain why all three of them are needed for the formula to work. All right, so the first principle is daily practice. So you need daily practice because your neurons and your neural pathways need that constant repetition. And that's how you grow these neural connections. If you don't have enough repetition and if it's not done on a daily basis, your neurons don't have enough practice to really form those pathways and to grow those pathways over time. That's where you won't get that type of skill development at a fast and high level. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in trying to learn new skills is they underestimate the power of daily repetition. They think that maybe practicing once or twice a week could lead to a lot of gains. With most skills, however, once or twice a week just isn't going to cut it, especially for the more difficult skills. The more difficult skills actually require, I think, higher frequency, and that's because your neural pathways really need to get familiar with it. The second principle in this three-principle formula is what I call sweet spot +1. So if you're teaching someone or if you're learning a skill yourself, the problem is if it's too difficult, then you get overwhelmed and you don't want to do it. But however, if it's too easy, then it gets boring and it's just not fun or challenging enough. So there's a sweet spot that you want to be at when you learn something. And this is extremely important to learn in this sweet spot. It's no use to try to practice something every day, but it's something that's just way too hard for you or it's just way too easy. It really needs to be at your level. But I add this idea of +1, meaning if something is just super right at your level, then you can still get stagnant and it might not be challenging enough. And so you don't learn enough. So I add this idea of sweet spot +1, which means it's at your level or your sweet spot, but it's a tad bit difficult and challenging for you, but not too much. And that's, I think, the ideal place to be at when you're learning a new skill. All right, the third principle in this three-part formula is the idea of correction and feedback. So if you or your child is learning a new skill and you don't have the right correction or feedback, then you don't know how to correct your mistakes. And so you can be practicing every day and it could be in your sweet spot +1, but you could be never improving because you're never correcting your mistakes. So it's crucial to have feedback and correction and the correct and the right type of feedback and correction. And I think that's an essential part of learning new skills. And it's part of this three-part formula. So here are the three parts again. Number 1 is daily practice. Number 2 is sweet spot +1. And number 3 is correction and feedback. So let me give you a few examples of this in action with my kids over the past several months. So about 6 months ago or so, my 9-year-old son started to learn piano from an app called Simply Piano. So I was really wanting my kids to pick up music and to be excited about it. So back in December, end of last year, I started to prep a music room and we bought a piano for them. And to inspire them, I started to play piano for them and kind of sing as I play piano. And for me personally, I've played piano kind of on and off over the years. So I'm good enough to play songs and to sing with them, but I'm not like crazy, fantastic or anything. But I really like piano. And I could make playing piano look fun and inspiring to my kids. And that's the whole point, is to kind of motivate them. And so my son and daughter were interested in piano. So that first step was a success. And I downloaded a bunch of piano apps for them on our iPad. And my son really took a liking to this one app called Simply Piano. It really now brought these three things together in this formula I'm talking about. It helped him, number one, practice daily. And then it gave songs at his sweet spot +1. And then it gave him this instant correction and feedback. So every note he would play, it would show if it's the correct note or not. And it was real-time feedback and correction. And the combination of these three things together really just sparked this huge, fast progression with him to learn piano. And I was really surprised because I didn't think he could learn, or kids could learn piano that fast. And after a month, he was already playing some songs, and kept on going month after month and just improving. And it's been less than 6 months, but he's still enjoying it and still improving radically fast. He plays almost probably 30, 40, 50 minutes, sometimes an hour a day. And we've never had to force him or even remind him or tell him to play piano. He just does it and he loves it. It's just something that he's seen himself improve super fast, and he likes it. And it's amazing how fast he's picking up the skill of piano. When I learned piano personally, when I was a kid, I was kind of forced to learn. And I went to a piano teacher and played songs I didn't like. It was a drag and just overall a terrible experience. And I think my son has learned in less than 6 months what it would take probably 2 or 3 years to do with weekly piano teacher lessons in person. It's just a much more enjoyable way and approach, and it's super effective because it's all three of these things in the formula coming together. So it's, again, daily practice, sweet spot +1, and correction and feedback. After seeing this work with piano, I started to do an experiment. I wanted to see if this could work with tennis. So about 4 months ago, we started an experiment of playing tennis, where I would give them a lesson for about an hour or an hour and a half. And I would make the lesson right at their sweet spot +1, meaning it would be right at their level, not too hard, but a bit challenging. And I would give them feedback and correction to help them correct their form and hit the ball better. Now, I'm not a professional tennis player by any means, but I've played tennis for many years in the past, and decent enough to be able to teach them. And we started this in February with my kids ages 6 and 9. And he started making fantastic progress, and it's been just an amazing thing to watch. One of the things that I think I was careful in the beginning was to really make sure that they're inspired and motivated. I think this, the art of motivation, I want to make a whole nother video on just the skill. I think it's a very high touch skill that is probably the foundation of all this, and it comes before and after this 3-part formula. But we would personally, my wife and I, take our kids to professional tennis tournaments. And we would travel actually to Dallas or Houston or Austin, different places, and we would watch, have our kids watch these professionals play tennis and just have a fun time watching them and get to know these players. And my kids would just have a blast. And then I would take them along with me sometimes for them to watch me play tennis, and they would see kind of how fun it is and how much I enjoyed it. And a lot of these things in combination just really sparked the seed of curiosity, motivation, and desire for them to do it. So by the time February came along and I wanted to try this out, the kids were completely for it. They wanted to play tennis. They wanted to try. They wanted to get better. So after bringing these 3 things together, right, daily practice every day, sweet spot +1, so it's right at their level, a bit challenging, and feedback and correction. So after a few weeks, we started to see a ton of improvements. After a few months, more improvements, and it's been 4 months, and so there's been a radical jump in tennis. So the kids are enjoying it. They see their improvements. Just the other day, yesterday, we were watching video of them from 2.5 months ago, and they couldn't believe that they were hitting the ball like that because they've improved so much just in the past 2 months or so. My kids are definitely believers in this 3-part formula. Now, this is in stark contrast to kind of last year. I had someone teach them and coach them tennis for a few months. And the problem was, even though it was daily, it just wasn't at their sweet spot plus one. It was like kind of too hard with the drills and stuff. And there wasn't the right correction and feedback. And I think because of that, when you're lacking one or two things out of these three parts, yeah, I don't think it's possible, or it's not effective in learning like a new skill fast and at a high level. Regarding correction, yeah, I think this is a sensitive part because some kids, they just don't like correction, and they can be ultra sensitive to correction. It could feel kind of shaming and not good. And of course, the person giving correction needs to be able to give correction in the right manner where the kid could receive it and start to see the value of correction. Now, with my kids, I had to kind of share and get with them and get them on board regarding the value of correction, so they could appreciate the value of correction versus not having any correction. And then I had to experiment and try different forms and different types of correction and ways that they can handle it and kind of see their response. But yeah, eventually my kids got into it, and even though they might not like it right now, they still accept it, and they still even ask for it because they understand how much it improves their skills. All right, another area that we've applied this three-part formula to with my kids recently is in the area of math. So I noticed my kids were having a hard time with math, and they just didn't like it. So we decided to apply, right, this formula, not just to music, not just to sports, but see if it could help with math. So again, daily practice, sweet spot plus one, and correction and feedback. So originally we enrolled them in a math kind of after school program, and it was kind of too hard for them. It wasn't like a sweet spot plus one situation. It was like sweet spot plus like 3 or 4. And the feedback that they were getting, it wasn't instant. They would have to turn in their papers, and it would take a long time to get feedback. And it was a stressful experience for them. So I started to create my own worksheets. And then eventually, after a few months, I created a software web app for them. And it basically takes these three concepts. It takes daily practice. So every day they would have an assignment to do, and it was about 10 minutes or so. And in this assignment, it would really be a sweet spot plus one situation where I first made this extensive math curriculum going over, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division over many levels and lessons, and got all these like different approaches going. And then this curriculum would be very personalized. So I would look at how they're doing in their recent worksheets and lessons, and then we would make sure that they're exactly getting what they need to get, right at their level. And then as they would sometimes it would take 5 or 6 days, but then I could see them slowly move up. They would get, 5 plus 6s or the plus 5s, the plus 6s, and after a week it would go to plus 7. I would just kind of slowly, one level at a time, move it up. And then I would mix it up too, so it wouldn't be kind of boring. Get a little bit of subtraction or multiplication, etc., but right at their level, so it's not overwhelming. And the result was fantastic. The kids started to get into it because it wasn't overwhelming, it wasn't too hard. And the app I made actually will give instant feedback and correction. And so they were able to learn on the spot. My kids have been doing this education approach or math education for a few months now, and they've just skyrocketed in their math skills. And the biggest transformation is they actually don't mind math. They actually do it, and they do it fast, and they're learning, and they can see their improvements, and it's a complete transformation. But it's kind of testament to this idea of bringing together these three concepts, right? Of daily repetition, sweet spot plus one, and correction feedback. And when they're all put together, it just leads to this, at least in my personal experience, this skyrocketing in abilities and skill development. A few weeks ago, my daughter wanted to learn guitar. She's like 6 years old. So we spent a couple of weeks like doing this daily practice of the guitar, feedback correction, all that stuff, and sweet spot, finding songs right at their level. And I think overall, it's a great formula. It's an amazing thing. If you can bring these three parts together, three principles, you can learn almost anything. And I think kids can be empowered to see possibilities out there of, hey, what do I want to learn? I could do it, right? But it's kind of like it snowballs, meaning you need to get something started. They need to learn one skill and see this happen at a faster pace than they expect. and be blown away by the improvements, and then they can apply it to another skill, and another skill. If kids can, I think, learn this from a very young age, that whatever skill they want to learn, they could do it, right? They can bring these three principles together, right, into this approach, and they have a great chance, actually a fantastic chance to learn almost anything they want at a very high skilled level. Another thing I appreciate about this approach is I personally think there are a lot of things that require high skill level in order to fully appreciate, enjoy, and maximize the benefits of the activity. For example, certain sports, you're just not going to enjoy it, and it's not going to be that much fun unless you're at a certain skill level. Like, for example, if you play golf and you don't golf very well, you're just not going to have that much fun with it, right? Golf is meant to be played in a way where you have a certain skill level, and that makes golf fun. I think for a lot of sports, and for music and other things, it's very similar. For example, if you can't play piano well, it's just that you're not going to have that much fun playing piano, right? And if you play piano well, you enter into this zone where it's awesome. Like, piano is just, you do things that are amazing. It sounds amazing, and it's so rewarding. And I think a lot of times it requires the person learning that skill to have high standards, because you need to have a goal to get to a high level, skill level, and that unlocks kind of all this kind of potential and benefit from that activity. Just like, for example, with piano, if you operate or you learn piano at a high level, you can really maximize and unlock the joys of piano. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to be professional level piano, but I think and it could be different for every person, right, in situation. But yeah, I do think there's a certain level of ability that really unlocks more enjoyment in the activity. So what I find myself asking with my kids are kind of, what are the core areas, let's say the 5, 6, or 7 areas of skills that I really want my kids to excel at, for them to be really, really good at. And that those skills would enrich their lives, so much so that, let's say 30, 40, 50 years from now, they'll look back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful I learned those skills, right, at a young age, and I learned them at a super high proficiency level, because they've unlocked these huge joys and benefits, right, in those areas for my entire life. One area for sure is sports. I really want my kids to love to exercise and love sports. It doesn't have to be all sports. I don't even think it's realistic for them to be great at all sports and to love all sports. I mean, think about it later on in life. Most people in their 40s or 50s or 60s, they're not doing 10 sports, yeah, for my kids, I really want them to at least love and be good at at least one sport, and to unlock the benefits, right, of that sport and exercise for their health and being. Another area is music. I really want them to be super proficient and at a good level with music, right? And it could be a musical instrument and maybe singing. And I mean, partially depends what they're interested in, but I want to plant this desire and motivation and inspiration of what music in their life could be like if they're able to do it at a high level. Another area is reading. And one of the things that my wife and I did early on was every day we read to them a lot of books. And we started very early and we did it every day. And it got to the point where they just naturally started to read on their own, because it was just a constant daily thing. And now we're able to provide literally thousands of books that we give access to them, or we have in front of them, because we actually buy a ton of used books, thousands every year, because I think volume is important for them. If they have a lot of access to a ton of reading, in interesting reading, again, right at their sweet spot, maybe +1, 2, it kind of stirs and draws out the curiosity in them. And for kids at the age, I think reading is a fantastic way. It builds all the different English skills automatically, almost. And it also gives this pathway and a doorway into the world of knowledge. So whatever area they want to learn and know more about, they have the ability to dive in, right? And they have this confidence to really go at it with long hours of reading, because they're so used to that. Yeah, I think it's one of the key foundations of how people gain access to knowledge across many domains, and it's that kind of love for reading. Anyways, a lot of this reminds me of what I talk about often, which is this kind of Renaissance model of education. I think today's modern society and modern education paradigm is one where kids, they major and in schools, they major in compliance and trying to reach kind of a certain almost average level across many different domains, but you're just not really great. Like the kids, for example, they don't read a ton. You don't see kids usually. There are always exceptions, but the average normal kid is not reading like 2 or 3 hours a day. They're not super curious about a bunch of topics. They're not expected, and they're not given the pathway either to be like great at music or sports or math or second language or different things. And I think, there's something about the modern education paradigm where we're so focused just on passing our kids like through school, passing our kids through grade level, that I think we oftentimes miss out on the potential of thinking, hey, let's take a step back. 40 or 50 years ago, or 40 or 50 years from now, what are my kids really going to appreciate in terms of the skills that they develop when they're young? What are 5, 6, or 7 areas that I really want my kids to excel in, to have skills that are super proficient, high level, right, in those 5 to, let's say, 7 areas? And I think the thing is, a lot of times when you do that, it requires a focus, and you're not going to be able to do everything. For example, with reading, I don't have my kids learn all the rules of grammar and do all this stuff with a typical English curriculum, because I've made priorities and choices, meaning I've chosen to focus my attention on trying to seed and really nurture and cultivate a love for reading. And it takes a lot of effort for me to be able to provide that environment and that motivation and inspiration to get in for my kids to enjoy that daily practice of reading, right? No coercion, just inspiration and lots of access, right, to books and knowledge. And I think in order for a student to excel in a skill, there needs to be a focus on that skill. And I think to some extent, it requires a sacrifice on some other surrounding minor things, right? That need to get sacrificed, because focusing in on that skill often takes a lot of focus and commitment. Anyways, those are just some of my thoughts regarding this 3-part formula to develop skills, right? To help kids learn skills at a high level and to learn them super fast and super quick. Overall, I think it perhaps could be one of kind of the key approaches and tools that parents could use to help their kids become kind of this well-rounded, let's say Renaissance, education model child who isn't just, okay at a bunch of domains, but actually excels, like is really good at sports and music, right? Arts, a second language, like reading, knowledge, etc. And one of the benefits of that is that these domains start to cross-pollinate each other at a certain level. I mean, this is my hypothesis, but if you're just mediocre or average, or just even above average in different areas, I don't think the different domains really cross-pollinate each other much. There's something about depth that unlocks kind of the mysteries and profoundness of different domains. And once you get into getting really deep into a sport, really deep into music, really deep into, knowledge and different areas, then what happens is it unlocks some like secrets and mysteries and super high benefits in those areas. But oftentimes they cross-pollinate other areas because the other areas have similar secrets and similar kind of keys of knowledge, but they're presented and they look different. And I think that's the super exciting thing about this idea of the whole kind of person, this holistic Renaissance kind of approach where you're not just mediocre or above average with 5 to 10 things, but rather you excel. You're at a super high level with music, with sports, with the arts, with relationships, communication, with reading, with math, with critical thinking, connection to nature, right? A second language, etc. And then you get this amazing amount of cross-pollination that's going on, and you are able to come up with amazing ideas, and you're a super interesting person because you have depth to you. Your skills kind of transport you into this area of fascination and curiosity and amazement. And you live in that, and it's evident through your personality and the things that you talk about and things that you're interested in. Yeah, and I think those are the type of kids that grow up to and are equipped to be able to do a lot of valuable things in the world and make a huge difference. Anyways, I think some of these things aren't really talked about enough in raising kids and in our approach to education. But anyways, I hope it's been helpful. All right, we'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks.